All right. So I guess they're winding up COP28 in the UAE, and we're all waiting with bated breath to find out what they're going to recommend or what they're going to observe about the situation with global heating and the resulting climate change. Um, one, uh, one thing I've gotten from the news media coverage of this uh, conference being held is that the host the hosts of it, which are a bunch, it's the UAE, which is a fossil fuel exporting country, and also a bunch of CEOs and you know big mucky mucks in the energy sector over there in the Middle East, and so I have been somewhat impressed that they seem to be taking it seriously. I mean, I've heard things coming out of those people in their press conferences that sound like they're really grappling with it. I don't hear any of the platitudes that come out of places like the Paris Climate Accords and other such things. These guys are really they're digging in, and they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to. They could have simply said, "Okay, the ball's in our court. We're just gonna we're just gonna sandbag this thing. Okay, we're just not gonna we're just gonna pretend everything's groovy. We're gonna talk happy talk." And I don't know if it's the reporters are asking tough questions, or if the the attention that the Emirati and the Saudis are getting is panicking them or making them feel awkward or vulnerable. But they're kind of coming out. They're saying things, and I've been reasonably impressed. That's all I can say. Reasonably impressed. Well done. I am surprised and pleasantly so. It can still turn out to be a waste of time, and they don't come up with anything, and they sell us all down the tubes and throw us all under the bus, and the whole thing could happen that way. But honestly, the U.S. Energy sector has been doing that or worse for 70 years. So in this country and ongoing, and so you can't get anything out of our own oil executives. All they say is everything's happy, and Americans want this, and we'll figure it out in the future. Let future generations figure it out. It's a problem for future generations. By the year 2100, we'll have technology that can solve the problem, and whatever. And that's just nonsense. And it's not helpful at all to talk like that. Let the children figure it out. Really, can we do any better than that? So anyway, back to the Saudis. So this guy, one of the sultans or the Emiratis or whoever it was holding a press conference or the equivalent, and he was saying, "Look, we can't stop burning fossil fuels, or at least we can't just stop. We have to do something other than just stopping because you know uh, w- you know will undermine prosperity, and what will the future look like?" And you might say, "Oh, well, that's scare tactics," or, "Well, of course you expect him to say that. He wants to sell more product." But as soon as I heard the quote of what he said, I was like, "Yeah, he's right. He's right. He said it. He said the thing. We're going to erode our prosperity, and we're going to endanger our future if we stop burning fossil fuels." That is 100% correct. That is absolutely correct, and there's no other way to say it. He just came out and said it. Wow, really? We can't get any politician in America to say things like that. I mean, they'll say things like, "Well, it'll cost jobs." And so you're thinking, "Oh, you mean the coal miners? If you cut back on coal production, the coal miners won't have as many hours to work." Okay. But that's kind of not what this guy said. He said, we'll erode our prosperity. And that's all of us, right? Not just the coal, not just the jobs, not just the truck drivers, not just the roughnecks working out in the oil fields. All of us will erode our prosperity and endanger our future. And yes, yeah, that's right. He said the thing. Now, this is where I have to talk about a thing called a wicked problem. wicked problem. It's called wicked problem not because it's evil or like the Wicked Witch of the West or something like that. It's it's a term of art that's used in planning and economics and refers to a set of problems that are not actually problems. Another word for a wicked problem is a predicament. Problems, as defined, have solutions. You may and they come together, and you may have think about a solution, but there's usually going to be a solution, and you may not like the solution. It may cost you money, it may cost you time, it may cost you profits, but problems are have solutions. And when you have a chemical plant that is spewing toxins into the atmosphere and causing people to have ill health, okay, that's a problem. And what's the solution? Well, you go into their process in their plant and you figure out what they're doing and how can we stop doing that. Maybe they just can't operate. Maybe that's the solution. They just can't operate, or they have to go operate someplace else. And of course, a lot of the times, industries, when they find themselves under scrutiny and regulations and environmental quality reviews and fines and permit violations, they just move to another country, solve their problem, right? So, uh, you know, that's not really a solution. Of course, now they're killing people in some other country, and maybe the reason they're killing people in that other country is because that country has no environmental controls or regulations. Doesn't care about their people, and and if they do have controls, they'll take a bribe. They'll take their $50,000, their suitcase full of Benjamins, and they'll overlook what's happening in the environment. So these are terrible, terrible solutions. But for the company that had a pollution problem they couldn't solve, that was their solution. They moved someplace else and killed people over there. So there are problems that have solutions. You may not like the solution. The solution may be unfair. The solution may be costly. It may upset people's lives, but at least there's a solution. The problem with the predicament, also called a wicked problem, is that there are no solutions, or at least the solutions, when implemented, are as bad or even worse than the original problem, if you want to call it that. Now you have to be careful. When we use the word problem, we always have, since we're all gung ho and, innovation is wonderful and capitalism always finds a solution. We have this thing that there's a problem solution couple. Just if there's a problem, identify a solution. If there is no solution to the problem, innovate. That's just our mindset about these things. And we just refuse to believe that there are problems that have no solution. But there are. And there are so many problems that have no good solutions that they had to coin a new term for a special kind of problem. And they're called wicked problems. You can look at this up. It's a term of art. You can look it up. I'm going to go to Wikipedia and I'm going to read a little something here. I don't do this very often, but I think this is important because I'm about to use the term wicked problem in a way that is a riff off of what this guy was saying at COP28. He may not even know that he's dealing with a wicked problem. Let's continue. In planning and policy, a wicked problem is a problem that is difficult or impossible to solve because of incomplete, contradictory, and changing requirements that are often difficult to recognize. It refers to an idea or problem that cannot be fixed, where there is no single solution to the problem, and the wicked, in this case, denotes resistance to resolution rather than evil. Another definition is a problem whose social complexity means that it has no determinable stopping point. Meaning when you start pursuing solutions, they just go and branch and continue and loop back and double back and feed back into the original problem. And then you're off on some other tangent. So it has no stopping point. It's like code that has no halting algorithm, okay? Moreover, because of complex interdependencies, the effort to solve one aspect of a wicked problem may reveal or create other problems. Due to their complexity, wicked problems are often characterized as organized irresponsibility. I hadn't heard this one before. This is worth repeating. Due to their complexity, wicked problems are often characterized by organized irresponsibility. Organized irresponsibility. Due to their complexity, Wicked problems are often characterized by organized irresponsibility. You see this happening in Congress, the US Congress, all the time. These people are so headless, so moronic, that they start to resemble organized irresponsibility. And one of the reasons that governments these days, today, may be resembling a circus act, organized irresponsibility, is because they are confronting massive, overlapping, wicked problems. That's a possibility. Now, that doesn't get them off the hook because their responsibility as social engineers, which is what they are, is to point out to people that the reason they don't seem to be able to come to a solution is because there isn't one. Now, if you're an American and you're an innovator and you believe in free speech and you believe in democracy and capitalism and market forces and the invisible hand and all this kind of stuff, then the idea that there are wicked problems that have no actual solution probably just grates on you like sandpaper. It's like, what is this? Who is this defeatist person? Who is this overthinking woke person who just won't look at the problems and just won't accept that there's a solution and just go with the solution even if it's contrary to your politics and your progressive attitude about everything. Just take the solution, whatever the solution is, right? Just there is a solution, so just adopt the solution and implement it. Okay, well, look around you. Do you see people solving problems? No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't see many solutions to many problems. And even when people come to office in the US Congress and they're saying, well, I got all these solutions to problems, and they get in there and then they just kind of go kind of quiet. You notice that? They get in there and they're pounding their shoe on the podium and I'm going to solve the problems. I'm going to drain the swamp. And then it's just crickets. They get in there and it's crickets. And you'll say, well, they're just sellouts. Well, okay, but they can't all be sellouts. They can't all be sellouts. And the guy at COP28, he comes out and he's doing his final press conference, final presser at the end of COP28, and he's saying he's sounding frustrated. Listen, people, if we stop burning fossil fuels, then we're not going to have any prosperity, and we're kind of detonating our future. And he's right, and he's frustrated, and maybe even he's a little bit frightened. Maybe he's never thought about this before. Maybe it's business as usual where the only challenges we have are finding more oil. And the only challenges we really have are shipping more oil and having more ships and more pipelines and solving all the problems. And he wakes up one day and he's hosting COP28 and the people come and there's all these speeches and all these talks and he's listening to people he's never talked to before and he's never thought about these problems because he's a businessman and he's just looking at profit and loss statements every quarter and he's just solving problem after problem with where the pipeline goes and how we get more of this supplies and how can we hire more engineers and how do we educate more engineers, and this is his daily life. And then he goes to COP28 and someone sits him down and they say, I know you're really busy, and I'm not going to accuse you of having your head up your ass. You're a really smart guy. You're running an international business, and you're very successful at doing that. You're highly qualified at what you're doing. You're not a dummy. But you're supposed to be talking about global climate change and the threat from that to all of us. And let me tell you about this problem. Sit down here. All of you sit down here. This is going to take a minute. I want you to just set aside all your prior thoughts about this problem. And I want you to listen. And when he came away from that, he might have been a little bit scared. He never thought about this. And when he came away, he was like, God damn it. Okay, he didn't say that because he's Muslim. But he was worried. He came out worried. I'm worried. I'm no dummy. I am no dummy. I mean, can't you tell I'm not a dummy? Maybe you can't tell. Maybe I'm just another talking head. Maybe I'm just another, egghead scientist who, runs around looking at butterflies or something. And what do I know about life and reality and all this kind of stuff? Sorry to disappoint. I know a lot about it. So is this other guy. And he's finally realizing, hold on, You mean that this climate change thing, this is not a regular problem? Hold on, what are you talking about? This is a wicked problem. Explain this to me. Are you making this up? What do you mean there's no solutions? Yeah, this is going to hurt. Now, any way you turn, this is going to hurt. There was no easy way out. There's a wicked problem. We're in a predicament. There are lots of solutions, and they're all bad. They're all bad. Every one of them is bad. Some of them are worse than others, but any one of them you touch, it's just radioactive bad. There's a set of bullet points here below that, to a paragraph description of what a wicked problem is. And it's 6 bullet points. I'll just read them quickly and poke this way in the back of your mind as you watch my videos, as you deal with my discussions of this stuff, as you deal with my framing of the problem, okay? And what I do here, because I am trying to frame the problem. I'm trying to make people understand that this is going to hurt. This is just going to hurt. I don't know how else to say it. It's just going to hurt. It's going to be lethal. It's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be humiliating. It's going to be humiliating. 6 bullet points. What is the wickedness of a wicked problem? The wickedness is the problem is not understood until after the formulation of a solution. Wow. Really? So in other words, you think you understand the problem and you start formulating a solution. This should work. And then when you got the solution and you apply it to the problem, it's like, oh, that doesn't work. And then you realize something about the problem that you didn't understand. And so you come up with another solution. Maybe it's similar to the first, but it's a little different. And you try to apply that solution. That doesn't work either. Hold on. And you just learned something new. And now you're like, wait, do I not understand this problem? And so you study the problem a little more and you come back with another couple more solutions and you try to apply your solutions and they just make the problem worse. And now you're thinking, hold on, what is going on here? I'm not stupid. I think I understand my field. Okay. And there's this problem here that I can't seem to solve. Bingo. Bingo. Yes. There you go. Light should go off. You have a problem that is not understood until after the formulation of a solution or many. Wicked problems have no stopping rule. There's no end. It just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. It's just no theoretical end to this thing. Solutions to wicked problems are neither right nor wrong. So they're very difficult to evaluate. There's no binary. Oh, that fixed it. Oh, that didn't work, but we know why it didn't work. You just can't figure that out. There's no way to grapple with it. You've got your solutions, and it's like square pegs and round holes. It just doesn't seem to fit. Every wicked problem is essentially novel and unique. So you've never seen this before. Again, you're exploring it. Okay. And you're wrapping your head around it and you're experimenting with solutions and none of them work. And you're learning about the problem as you grapple with it. And this is the worst case scenario. This is, you've got a problem. What you need is a solution. And yet you're going down this rabbit hole of just digging and digging and digging. It just gets more and more complex and more things get tied in. And all your solutions are square pegs trying to find a square hole. And it's just not working. Every solution to a wicked problem is a one-shot operation. So not only is the problem novel and unique, not only have you never seen this before, you might have one shot at it. Wow. Well, really? Okay. Yes, you might have one shot at it. Because your solutions might be really expensive, or they might require a lot of policy changes, or they might require a lot of money, and you might just get one shot at this. And wicked problems are like that. They're like that. It's complicated. It's tied into everything else that you thought was completely separate. And every time you touch something, you set off this explosion. And now you're supposed to solve this thing. And all your solutions take a long time to formulate, require all these people to get involved. It's all this money, all this policy, all these decisions, all these treaties. It's international. It's global. You're working with your enemies. Your allies don't like you anymore. And you got one shot at this. Wow. You might not even do it. You might walk away. No solution offered. You might walk away from a wicked problem. Wicked problems have no given alternative solutions, which is another way of saying the same thing. you got one or two solutions, maybe three, and they're all bad, and there are no alternatives. And that's when you get into arguments with people, and you offer a solution, and they say, "Man, that sucks." Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, let's try this. Oh, that's even worse. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I'm not even going to argue. Well, is there anything else? No. I mean, we got bad and we got worse, and actually, it's hard to say which is the bad and which is the worst. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, that must be wrong. No, that's the size of it. But we need to think about this. We need to innovate. We need to get different people in the room. Well, go ahead, be my guest. I've thought about it. I've had those people in the room. You're not the first person I've talked to about this problem. And the last time I talked to a bunch of people, we all left frustrated and crying and just depressed. And yeah, so I'm talking to you because I'm thinking maybe you and I will have a different conversation. But uh, 5 minutes into it, the conversation between you and I is sounding just like the conversation I had with that other group of people earlier. You know, and yeah, it's bad. It's bad. And Americans are not accustomed to that. Modern people who have, you know, computers and internet and they can hire all these people, all these experts, all this expertise, people that have spent decades doing on one little simple problem in communications, or one tiny problem in space exploration, or one tiny problem in policy alignment or whatever. And you bring these experts in, and they look at your problem. They look at your problem. They say, phew, well, that's yeah, you got a real problem here. No, I don't have any recommendations. Sorry, I'm speechless. I'm looking at your problem, and it looks like a problem I should solve. This is, I've got a PhD in this. I work for several, I'm on several boards of directors and companies that work with this type of thing, and I've never seen this before. I don't know what to tell you. It's completely novel. Have you tried some things? Did they work? No, they didn't. I would have thought one of those would have worked. So, geez, what's the problem space? What's the solution space? Is there any overlap? Do we need to bring in some consultants? I don't know. And you walk away scratching your head. I'm making a big deal out of this because as you start listening to people talk about climate change, and I don't like that word, but I'm going to use it because it's the vernacular now. It's really global heating, and it's global heating caused by excessive CO2 accumulation in the atmosphere. And the accumulation of CO2 in the atmosphere is not coming from natural sources. It's coming from artificial sources. It's coming from us. And the way we are doing that, the way we are releasing excessive CO2 into the atmosphere and enhancing the greenhouse effect, is because we are digging up fossil fuels and setting them on fire. And fossil fuels are made out of carbon, primarily. And they store energy. And when you put a match to them, they burn. And that's the first way we used them. Coal, we would burn it to make heat. And after that, we found other ways to set fire to it. And now, gasoline engines, diesel engines, airplane turbines, and of course your natural gas cooktop and the boiler for your water heater and a bunch of other things. It's all fossil fuels being set on fire and burning and releasing energy that's been stored there for hundreds of millions of years. And through geologic processes, and now we're digging it up and setting it on fire. We're doing that, and we have released all that CO2 in the atmosphere. It accumulates because there's nowhere for it to go, really, not in the short term, and in the long term, it's going to be there for hundreds of thousands of years, possibly, and it heats the atmosphere, and causes global heating. It's a global phenomenon. There is no reversing it, and once it's done, it's done. And the more you do it, the worse it gets. And at some point, the harms from the heating itself are so bad that they require you to do even more of what you've been doing. And that's why it's a wicked problem. So this guy at COP28, he came out kind of frustrated. Said, "Look, you're talking about stopping the consumption of fossil fuels. If we do that, then our prosperity is just going to collapse, and we just won't have a future." And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. So let me just explore the problem space and the solution space of what is clearly a wicked problem called global heating. And I'm not doing this to be Debbie Downer. Okay, I'm not doing this to be apocalyptic or uh, to be a negative person. I'm doing this because I'm an engineer. Because I'm an engineer. That's what I am. I'm an engineer. I understand problems and solutions. I work with problems all the time, every single day. Even in retirement, I deal with problems 4 or 5 times a day. And I look at the problem and say, well, I got to solve that before I can continue. I got to solve that. What do I need? Do I need a tool? Do I need a fastener? Do I need another type of wire? Do I need a different type of tool? Do I need a different type of appliance? How am I going to? Okay, fine. Do some research, figure out my plan of attack. And maybe it takes me money. Maybe it means I have to redo something. Maybe it means I have to do something different. It's going to take more time. I have to, change my course, whatever it was I was doing. I've done this many, many times just in the last several years. Things that I thought were going to be fine turned out not to be fine. I had to solve them a different way. I just do it. I just go through it. I just plow through it. I'm like an animal. I'm just like an ox. I just plow through it. Whatever. What? That's a problem now? Okay, plow through that. Creating a new problem. Okay, now I'll fix that one. Oh, now my problems are gone. Great. I solved all my problems associated with that particular project. And then I go on to another project. I just plow through it. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing right here, except you can't plow through a wicked problem. You can't plow through a wicked problem. You just can't do it. That's why it's called a wicked problem. And you don't do yourself any favors by pretending that you're going to solve this, because you're not. Why are you not? Because I'm a downer? No, because it's a wicked problem. And so maybe I have an obligation to explain to you and the Sultan, whoever at COP28, why this is a wicked problem and not a regular problem. Why this problem has characteristics of essentially novel and unique, that it's a one-shot operation. You get one chance at this, that there is no given alternative solutions. There's no stopping rule. It never ends. And you don't really understand the problem until you start formulating solutions. And then as you formulate solutions to your problem, you find more problems. And sometimes they're worse than the problem you were trying to solve. And that's when you realize you're just chasing your own tail. And you have to step back and you have to say, what? Wait. This isn't going anywhere. This isn't going anywhere. I think I know what that means. I think that means this is a wicked problem. Let me, come on, people, gather around. Let me take you to the Wikipedia page. Let me educate you on wicked problems. How is global heating a wicked problem? Now, excuse me, I don't want to talk about climate change. You can't fight climate change. That's my prior video before this one. You can't fight climate change because climate change is an effect, not a cause. You can't fight effects. You can recognize them, you can notice them, but you can't fight them. You have to find the cause. Okay, you see. Climate change, so-called, is actually a term of art that comes to us from essentially the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And they were trying to, do their narrative warfare on how to address this thing that's probably going to interfere with our profits and profitability and maybe give us a black eye and a bad reputation. So let's start some narrative warfare. Let's not call it global heating, or as they used to call it, global warming, which was also kind of weak, limp-wristed. Let's call it climate change. And why are we calling it climate change? Well, because climate change, no one knows what climate is, and the climate changes all the time, and different places of the world have different climates. And if you want to find a better climate, just get on a train and travel a couple of counties, and you'll find a better climate, right? So climate change is just more mushy, and everyone has an intuitive idea that it doesn't matter, and the seasons change and the climates change and it doesn't really matter, and every place has a different climate. And so the Chamber of Commerce got us all talking about climate change. And it's not, climate change is an outcome. You can't do anything about climate change. You can't fight it. You have to find out what happened to your climate. Why did it change? Okay, and you have to find the cause of that. And the cause of climate change is warming of the planet associated with the greenhouse effect. And what causes the greenhouse effect? It's what's called greenhouse gases in the vernacular, and they are by and large carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxides in the atmosphere. They're there naturally anyway, and some of the earliest science that was done when people were still discovering the Earth, and the Earth is round and it has an atmosphere and there's space beyond the atmosphere, and they were discovering these fundamental things. And someone who knew something about uh, entropy and heat decided to do some calculations and figure out what should be the temperature of the Earth, and is there anything about the atmosphere that keeps the Earth from being frozen? And I think it was Fourier actually who did this. And he's a great mathematician. People like that never rest. And so he did some calculations based upon the amount of atmosphere we had and how and the components of the atmosphere. And he calculated that if the Earth did not have a greenhouse effect, meaning it did not retain heat the way a greenhouse does, then the planet Earth would be 60 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than it actually is, which would be a big deal, given the average temperature of the Earth, like temperate regions in particular, it would be at or below freezing most of the time. So the greenhouse effect is a real thing, and we're glad we have it. It would be bad if we didn't. And there have been times when the planet Earth has been frozen solid. And the reason they think is because something happened to the CO2, that it was all stripped out and had to be replaced. And once it was replaced, then the planet was able to warm up again. And, that's just geologic processes interacting with the biological processes. And it's been an ongoing thing. But, for the last billion years or so, like, certainly hundreds of millions, the planet's atmospheric component has been fairly stable. And so we know this. We know these things. Now, you can not know that. You can even deny it's true. You can say people can't possibly know these things. Oh, well, we know these things, and we knew these things 150 years ago. So we are consuming fossil fuels because we like the free energy. Yes, it's free because we didn't put it there. Someone else did, right? We just dig it up and set it on fire. So that's free. That's free. That's as close to free as you can get. So we love the free energy, and it means the lights are on all night, and the internet, and the screen, and the the heater, and the heating the water, and it just goes on 24/7. And I don't have to go out and cut any wood. I've never cut wood to heat my water or to cook my food. I know people in the world do that, but I don't do that, and you probably don't do that either, right? Isn't that nice? You want to cook your food, you just turn the little knob thingamajig, and the flame comes up, and you put the pot on, and what could be easier? Easy peasy. So we love our fossil fuels, and we use our fossil fuels for everything, and it saves us time, and we have a wonderful life. We are very prosperous. We have lots of free time. Our quality of life is very good, and this is undeniably true. This is undeniably correct. Our lives are very good due to the exploitation of fossil fuels. Our lives are a miracle. The lives we live, and the ability to just move a switch and have all the lights come on in your house, it's magic. It's indistinguishable from magic for most people. In fact, most people who live in a house with electric lights and switches, things, don't even know how those work, have no idea how those work. They just know that they get a bill and they don't pay the bill. Someone somewhere is going to turn off the magic. That's all they know. They don't know how their water is heated. All they know that if the shower doesn't have hot water one day, they call a plumber. And they don't know where the gas comes from for their cooktop. They just know that if they don't pay the bill that comes once a quarter or once a month, then there's no gas to cook the food with. That's what they know. And the rest of it's just magic. No idea where it comes from. Not the first clue. Most people. And so our lives are like magic. It's like Harry Potter. Because of fossil fuels. This is unquestionably true. And when someone comes along and says, oh, global heating is a problem. Yeah, I guess it probably is, but we can't stop burning fossil fuels because we'll suffer for it. Yeah, you're right. We will. Yeah, this is going to hurt. You're noticing? Yeah, I've been thinking about that for a long time. I'm really worried. Well, then we can't stop burning fossil fuels. Well, you see, now that's when this becomes a wicked problem, because if you don't stop burning fossil fuels, then you're going to increase the component in the atmosphere that qualifies as a greenhouse gas. Both methane and CO2, and to some extent nitrous oxides, are emitted during the removal of the fossil fuels from the ground, the processing them, the refining, the pipelining and transporting, the combustion, the turning them into other products at refineries and cracking facilities, the flaring of the gases, the loss of the gases through the leaky pipes and the bad joints and everything else, and the oil spills and the gas spills and the all this kind of stuff. You know, when we do that, to have the magic, that the switch and the cooking and the boiler and the heater and the heating of the house and all the magic, then you have all these things go out, and it's a true. It's just true. That's what happens. Well, then we have to, and you'll hear people say things like this, and I think this guy even said. Um, During COP28, someone said, let's not talk about stopping the consumption of fossil fuels. Let's talk about reducing emissions. And what he's basically saying is, if you don't like the CO2 in the atmosphere, then don't put it there. And the problem with that is, and I'm an engineer, so don't talk like that to me without me putting on my thinking cap and trying to figure out what that means. Your car going down the street burning gasoline has CO2 coming out of the tailpipe. There you go. From tank to engine to tailpipe in a few seconds. Just takes a few seconds, and you've consumed a liquid gasoline. You got the heat and the power out of it. You're happy with your car's performance, and then the waste product, which is carbon dioxide and water and some other pollutants, goes out the exhaust pipe. Now what? What are you going to do about that? What's your solution to that? Someone's outside. And you like your car. You're not going to not drive your car. I have a solution for you. That's an electric car. Okay, fine. You can have an electric car. And the characteristics of an electric car are different, right? We know that you have batteries in the car, and the electricity, the electrons come out of the battery. They go through an electric motor. Electric motor turns, spins the wheels, and the car goes down the street. So where'd the electricity come from? Well, it came from the batteries. No, it didn't. That's just how you have portable electricity without an extension cord. Where the electricity come from in the batteries? Oh, well, I see what you mean. I charge my car at home. All right, sometimes I charge it at work. Okay, where'd the electricity come from? What do you mean? I just told you it came from the charger. No, it didn't. It came from somewhere else. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I have my house has electric service, and there's a meter, and it goes around. It measures the electricity. So I guess it comes from that pole out there across the street. Okay, that's good. Good. I'm glad you recognized all that. You're not creating electricity. You're getting it from somewhere else. So where's that come from? Okay, you're just being obnoxious. You're just making me go out to the pole and run the wires, and I don't know where that shit goes. Of course you don't. So allow me to tell you where it comes from when you charge your car from your household, electrical supply. It comes from a power plant that creates power somewhere. And by and large, most of the power plants that operate, because the alternatives are not very abundant or very reliable, are powered by coal and natural gas, and sometimes oil. Sometimes they just burn crude oil for the energy, and don't even send it to the refinery. Just burn it right out of the barrel and get the power out of it, the heat, and the fire boils the water, turns a turbine, steam turns a turbine, and you generate power. So your electric car, probably, the odds are your electric car is being powered by coal or natural gas. Just is. It just is. That's just how that works. Well, my country has a lot of geothermal, or has a lot of hydropower. That's water going over dams. And okay, fine. That's not a bad answer. At least it's not burning coal and natural gas. Now, in my country has a lot of nuclear. So, that doesn't have any CO2 emissions. That's true. The nuclear power plant does not have CO2 emissions. It has other set of problems. But once again, unless you live in France, where they have a huge number of nuclear power plants, if you live anywhere else in the world, probably most of your power is coming from some combination of coal, oil, and natural gas being combusted, and the waste products going out the smokestack. So your electric car probably isn't a solution. Plus, your electric car had to be manufactured as the batteries, the frame, the motor, all the seats inside, the gauges, the wiring, the tires, and your electric car still requires a roadway and traffic signals and police and highway patrol to maintain order, and that's all maintained with fossil fuels. And the police don't have electric cars necessarily. And I can promise you, the road crew that comes out at 2 o'clock in the morning to fix the potholes while you're asleep, they're not using electric vehicles, and the asphalt comes directly from crude oil. So, you're reliant on a lot of things happening behind the scenes in the infrastructure, which are all dependent on fossil fuels before you can start to charge your electric car and drive it out on the street to go to Costco. Now, I'm not saying that to be mean. I mean, you're obviously doing the best you can. I'm just saying it as a fact. And your electric car isn't going to go very far if we abandon fossil fuels. Because what percentage of our electric grid is so-called sustainable, meaning water going over dams from the rain, um, solar panels, wind farms? What percentage of it? It's not very much. Here in California, where we actually have a lot of hydro, and it's fairly sunny, so we have a fair amount of solar. Uh, yeah, I don't know. It's like 15%, 20% maybe. Is this alternative? And there's a small amount that's nuclear. We don't have much nuclear in California. We're a bunch of hippies. Um, and the rest of it's natural gas. And I've even seen trains, not recently, but when I was young, I used to see trains on the tracks with coal. Now, I don't know where they were going, but maybe it was for manufacturing. Maybe it was steel manufacturing. I have no idea. Maybe they were running kilns to cook cement. I have no idea what they were doing with the coal. But I've seen trains going through California with coal on them and kind of scratch my head wondering where that's headed. So even here in California, there's still an appetite for coal. At least it used to be. So all this is going on behind the scenes. And, you thought you were going to solve your problem by getting an electric car. And then the question is, can we get electric cars for everybody? Because we have to get off of fossil fuels. It's not just you and you having your feel good experience and being superior or whatever, or just clearing the dark spot on your soul, right? You just don't want to be part of that fossil fuel thing because it's bad and you just want to be as far away from it as possible. And okay, so you bought an electric car, but how far are you from it? Yes, indeed. When it's sitting in your driveway, ready to take you down the street to Costco, there's no CO2 coming out of the back, right? But there's CO2 coming out of a stack someplace, or you wouldn't be able to charge that thing. Now, if you had solar panels on your house and some batteries to store the extra energy you're creating, then you could, in theory, this is a narrative you could have, you're charging your electric car directly from the sun. Now, once again, can everybody have that? Can everybody have solar panels? Are there solar panels for everybody? Does your car automatically come with a solar installation for your home? Because if it doesn't, then that's another thing you have to buy. And do you even want that on your home? And will your city even allow you to have that? Or are the permits even available? Will they even give you permits for that? Here in California, when they build new houses, they have to put solar panels on them. And people bitch about it. They complain about it. Oh my goodness, this adds to the price of the house, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, okay, but don't you understand what they're trying to do here? They're trying to solve a wicked problem. They're trying to make sure that people who are going to go down the street with their electric vehicle have a narrative that, they're not on fossil fuels. They're just not, because they got their electrons from the sun. And so there's all these things you have to do. And when you want to get off of fossil fuels, so you buy an electric car, and now you have to make sure that your electrons are totally renewable, and that means you really need solar panels on your home. And the solar panels came from China, and they're manufacturing them over there because we don't manufacture stuff here anymore. And now they're being shipped over on cargo ships that spew all this smoke into the sky, and there's so much pollution at ports of call that they become the air is toxic to breathe because of all these ships unloading their cargo. And so now you're buying into all that. And lithium for the batteries and lithium mining and cobalt mining. These are blood metals, but practically slave trade, getting people into these mines to get these metals out. It's horrific. It's not a good solution. Yeah, you can buy it and you can apply it, you can have it in your life, but it's just not a great solution. So, How do we solve this problem? And people will say, well, okay, fine, fine, fine. Forget the electric car. We're all going to drive. And even the electric car, there's probably a coal-fired power plant somewhere that's charging it up. So yeah, that's still a problem. So let's just realize that we have to, pull the carbon out of the atmosphere. We got to pull the carbon out of the atmosphere. That's the real solution. We'll just innovate. We'll create a whole new sector of the utilities industry. Okay, a whole new set of companies that are like sister companies to all the energy majors. In fact, all the energy majors could be required to set up parallel companies just to remove CO2 from the atmosphere. So over here, on the one hand, they're selling the product and the carbon is going up in the atmosphere. And over here, in another whole part of their industry, another part of their business operation, they have a whole other company that's sole responsibility is to pull the carbon back down out of the atmosphere and do something with it, store it or send it someplace, right? Turn it into another product. So that could be your solution. Okay, fine. Okay, great. Now we have a solution. This is not a wicked problem. It's just a problem. And the solution, it's annoying, right? Where it's going to cost money, I'm sure. It's going to take policies. It's going to take treaties. It's going to take, strong arming the fossil fuel companies. They don't want to do this. This is not their key, their core competency. It's not part of their business model. They don't want to be in the business of pulling carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. But these are all just problems. It's the usual kind of problems. Draft the treaty, sign the treaty, create the regulations, create the laws to enforce the regulations, build a bigger government, send all these agents out into the field, promote all these construction projects, fund all these projects, get DARPA involved, get NASA involved, get Elon Musk involved. We'll just innovate and build and create and pour cement and build towers, and then we'll pull the CO2 out of the atmosphere. It's okay. Okay, we just outlined a whole shit show of stuff that's just going to have to work. And then before you can even do that, before you can even do all that work, which is going to be like a lifetime's work, if not multi-generational work, just to get these new industries in place to do this one thing you need done, to pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. It's called direct air capture, DAC. People are talking about this. They've been talking about this for 10 solid years, if not 20. You got to have a DAC industry. We're going to pull the CO2 out of the atmosphere. And over here, we're selling gasoline and the CO2 is going in the atmosphere. And over here, we're very quietly pulling it down and doing something else with it, burying it in the ground or whatever. Well, the problem with that is you don't have technology to do that. I mean, I just did this whole narrative thing about how we're going to set up corporations and fund them and grants and DARPA and NASA and Elon Musk. And we're going to figure all this out. And we're going to connect all the dots and all the Lego pieces. But you can't. There's no technology to do that. They talk about it. And, I'm sure there's a corporation somewhere that, got a grant and did some funding and did some chemistry and set up a lab and set up a thing. And, so they can theoretically do it. But they're not doing it. There's not thousands of these things operating. We would need millions of these plants operating. We would need several, 2 or 3 of these plants co-located with every refinery. We would need several of these plants operating in the vicinity of every coal-fired power plant. We would need these plants scattered all over the landscape around major urban areas. Hundreds of them, thousands of them. And there's like one somewhere, like a proof of concept that they started like 10 years ago. There's one. If there's one, and they haven't scaled this out to the millions of them that are necessary, then there's something wrong. Now, they love the narrative. The narrative is really, really, really useful. Well, you can't say we don't have the technology because we've got a plant over here that's been experimenting with direct air capture of carbon dioxide for 4 or 5 years now. We capture like a ton a day. Sometimes, some days we capture 2 tons a day. Well, that sounds like a lot, but did you know that we're putting up, what is the number? 40 billion tons a year. 40 billion tons a year of CO2 goes into the atmosphere. 40 billion with a B. Billion, not 1 ton, not 10 tons, not even 1 million tons, not even 1 billion tons. 40 billion tons. And at this point, we not only have to pull down everything that we emit every single year, which is 40 billion tons a year of CO2 emissions all over the planet, even out at sea. We also have to pull down the stuff we've emitted in the past. So basically, you need to double your installation of factories that are doing this. And so you could say, okay, well, theoretically, we could do that. I mean, if there's a way that the chemistry works to capture CO2 from the air, and there's machines that can do this, then maybe we're not scaling them up because they cost a lot of money. We'll just throw money at it. We'll just somehow we'll find money and we'll just throw money at it, and then we'll scale them out and we'll solve the problem that way. No, you won't. No, you won't. And the reason why these things are not being pushed out is because they require energy. The process of pulling CO2 out of the atmosphere requires energy. And the only proof of concept I've seen is a direct air capture plant associated with a power plant. And they're taking some of the power from the power plant to power the direct air capture to capture the CO2 being emitted by the power plant or in the environment. So it takes energy to do this. And of course it does, because you have to pay attention to what's been happening all along. I've kind of alluded to this, but it's hard to connect the dots. So now I have to connect the dots for you. And this is why this becomes a wicked problem. You've got two activities. You've got a coal-fired power plant over here that's taking coal out of the ground for free, practically, burning it and getting the energy out of it. That's why we burn the coal. We don't burn the coal because we like to burn things. We're burning the coal to get the energy out of it. We use the energy to heat water, to create steam, to drive turbines, to create electricity. We're burning the coal for the energy. The coal had energy. We burn the natural gas for the energy. The energy is released and we capture the energy and we boil water with it, okay? And then the resulting emissions, the carbon dioxide, the water, the nitrous oxides, the methane, they're just dumped into the atmosphere like the atmosphere was a giant sewer. So that's happening over here. We are burning the fossil fuel to get the energy. That's the target. Now, you're saying that over here, where you're doing direct air capture, you're going to reverse the process. That's what you're saying. You're going to take the carbon oxide out of the atmosphere. You're going to capture it. You're going to turn it into a solid or something that can be managed, right? Buried in the ground or stored in a warehouse somewhere, whatever. Turned into bricks, and the bricks used to make freeways. I don't know what you're going to do with it, but you're going to capture it from the atmosphere and you're going to turn it into something that's not a gas in the atmosphere. You don't want it up here in the atmosphere because it's a greenhouse gas that heats the earth. So you're going to capture it and you're going to put it down here and make it a solid again. So you started with a solid over here called coal and you burned it and you got all these gases plus heat. Okay, and the heat's lost. It goes to heat the water and it's gone. The heat is gone, but you're stuck with the gases. So over here, you're going to take the gases and you're going to turn them into a solid. But you notice what I just did here? I skipped the part about the heat. Because if you got heat out of coal and plus the waste gases, and then you're going to capture the waste gases and turn it back into a solid again, not coal, but something solid, then there's this heat, this energy. It's going to take energy to reverse that process. It's not free. You got to pay the piper. It's just not free. You've got to pay. And you got energy out of this one reaction, burning coal. You got energy and waste products, and you're going to take the waste products and you're going to use energy, to recreate the solid. And watch this. They no longer call it carbon capture and renewal and removal. Now they call it carbon capture, removal, and reuse. Because someone figured out, if we're reversing the chemistry, we're taking the CO2 out of the atmosphere, we're putting energy into it and creating something solid like the original coal, then that can be burned. Hold on, we now have a new fuel, and we can take this fuel, get the heat out of it, and put it back in the atmosphere. We just created a whole new artificial thing. Nature created the coal, burying trees and burying algae, and nature created the coal, and we dug it up and set it on fire. But we can also recreate it from the original CO2 in the atmosphere. We can take the CO2, capture it, use energy to make it into a new form, and then that form can be burned. Artificial fuels, artificial wood. We can get the energy back out, and it goes back in the atmosphere, because they don't mention that part. They don't mention the part that by reusing the carbon you just captured, you put it right back in the atmosphere. But they're willing to talk about that because that's something they can sell. They can sell that. That's a usable product, and they manufactured it the same way you can manufacture shoes. They manufactured it, and now it's a product they can sell. So the only time they really want to talk about carbon capture and removal is the reuse part. And if you don't talk about the reuse, that this is a saleable product that takes energy to create, then they can't figure out how to price this, because the energy has to come from somewhere. And where are you going to get the energy to pull CO2 out of the atmosphere and make it into something solid again? So it's not in the atmosphere anymore. Where's that energy part come from? Where's that come from? Are you going to have a power plant nearby? You could. You could have a power plant nearby. How are you going to fire that power plant? Oh, well, power plants. Well, we can burn natural gas and coal and get electricity to make this new product, this manufacturing process you're going to do that you're calling DAC, direct air capture. Yeah, but that kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? What do you mean? How does it defeat the purpose? You wanted to capture CO2 and make it into a different product, and it takes energy. We'll just have another coal-fired power plant running over here, and we'll just do that. But that's coal-fired power plant is now contributing to the original problem. Yeah, but that just means you make another DAC over here, and it captures the CO2 emissions from your coal-fired power plant that's being the energy for your DAC process that's collecting CO2 from another coal-fired power plant that's like a legacy power plant. And so where does this end? And you remember one of the definitions of a wicked problem? It has no stopping point. A wicked problem, one solution just creates another problem, which needs a solution. And you just go down this rabbit hole. That your direct air capture requires electricity. So what are you going to do? Well, we could use renewable energy for our direct air capture. Neener. Yeah, you could. And so you're going to have to sell that to somebody, that you're going to bring that, rather than giving solar power to people to run on their homes, to charge their cars with, to have locally. Instead, you're going to devote all your solar panels and your nuclear and your falling water and your geothermal. You're going to devote all that to direct air capture, because that's the only way it makes any sense. If you're doing anything else with your DAC process, then you're just contributing to the problem with a coal-fired power plant that's going to loft CO2 in the atmosphere. So now you have to have this entire narrative that you're going to create an entire direct air capture program with millions of plants, if not hundreds of millions of them, all around the planet, sucking CO2 out of the atmosphere and making it solid again to bury it in the ground. Because if you reuse it, you've defeated your own entire purpose. And you're going to use alternative energy for that. But you're not going to provide alternative energy for the people. You're just going to use alternative energy to pull CO2 out of the atmosphere so that we can keep burning coal over here and burning natural gas and oil over here, because there's an entire industry that's dependent on that happening. And they have a lot of money and a lot of influence. And they just hosted COP28. And they don't want you to talk about not burning fossil fuels. They want to burn the fossil fuels. They want to sell the fossil fuels, because they make money doing that. And they don't have to pay any money into the problem with the CO2 in the atmosphere. Now, they're going to suffer from global heating the same as the rest of us do, but they don't care. They're the elites. They're the billionaires. They're raking in dollars by creating global heating. They don't care. And if they're Elon Musk, they plan on going to Mars. They've got a narrative. They've got a plan. They think they do. I don't think they do. I think you got their head up their ass. Mars is a hellscape. And maybe you can have 1,000 people up there after 2 generations of trying to get people up there. Maybe eventually 1,000 people could be up there. But if you're Elon Musk, you could be one of those 1,000 people. You could have a great mansion up there and a harem of women, and any laws you want to make. You just make laws up every day over your breakfast cereal, and you're just the king of the roost, and you don't have to worry about the UN or the Geneva Conventions or child labor laws or anything, man. You just live it up on Mars, right? That's your solution. Yeah. And once in a while, you bring out your telescope and you look up at the Earth up there, up in the sky, and oh, yeah, look at those people eating each other. Yeah, they're bad people. I'm glad we left all that behind. You know, civilization collapsing. Look at all those nuclear wars as civilization collapses. Yeah, that's what he's going to be doing. I could say something about that, but I'd get sued. It's a wicked problem, people. And you think I'm making it up, and you think I'm over the top, and you think I'm not, you know, being clear minded and, and all that. No, no, I've given it a lot of thought. And I'm not the only one who's aware of the problem. I'm not the only one pointing out that we are stuck, and this is going to hurt. When we stop doing this, as we must. Oh, yeah, baby. We must stop doing this. And when we stop, people are going to die. I don't mean suffer, and I don't mean regret. They're going to die. It's as simple as that. That I just no other way to say it. And I'm not worried about people's prosperity, and yeah, that'll be eroded. And I'm not worried about people's future. A lot of people aren't going to have one, and the reason why they're not going to have a future is because they're going to die. And there's just no two ways about it. They are going to die. And you go back to my earlier videos, I spend a lot of time talking about how many it is and why exactly it has to be that way. And it's not my idea, it's physics. Okay. And when you do the back of the envelope calculations, you get a die off of people. And some people will say, well, it's 50%. Some will say 70%. And some will say 90%. And that's all the good news. That's the good news. When I look at it as a biologist and as a person who understands history and where humans come from and human cultural evolution and how we came to be where we are and how we were in the past and what we're going to be doing in the future, and I just do the numbers, I get a 99.9% die-off. Just like that. Well, Lordy, that's going to hurt. That's going to leave a mark. You damn right. We are 8,000 million humans. And right now, I don't think this planet would be any good for more than 80 million people. And that's a 99% die-off right there. Easy, just quick, just right off the top of my head. Yeah, 80 million, that's about it. Historically, the planet never supported more than 250 million people around the entire planet. And the planet was pristine, and there were forests and streams and the oceans, and everything was clean. And people were using sustainable technology, and they lived their lives by the sun. They got up in the morning, they went to bed at night. Animal labor, and they had all their grains and their agriculture, and they had their mills, and they had their silos, and they had religions built around the seasons, and they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew every week what they had to do, and the whole community pulled together, and everybody would sing songs and work together, and plant the wheat and pull up the wheat and thresh the wheat and put the wheat in the mill, and they would thank God, and they would eat together, and they sometimes would starve together, and they knew exactly how to do this. You don't. No, you don't know how to do shit. You only know how to die. Okay, I'll give you that. You know how to die. Yes, you do. You and a lot of people are going to figure out that they know exactly one thing, and that's how to starve to death. They know how to do that. That sucks. And I'm not worried about your prosperity, and I'm not really, frankly, worried about your future. I kind of know what your future looks like. I know where this is headed. I know where this is headed. Oh man, do I know? And I think that guy at the COP28, I think he knew. Yeah, he came out, gave his press conference, and he's like, I could just imagine what that was like for him. He's probably sitting there shaking in his shoes. What do I say? What do I say? Goddamn, what do I say? How am I going to say this? I don't even want to say this. I don't want to have the conversation. Don't ask me any questions. Ask me no questions. I'll tell you no lies. He had to say something. He was duty bound under the aegis of God to say something and not to lie and to say something that was truthful. And all he could say was, listen, we can't stop burning fossil fuels. If we do, we'll lose our prosperity and we'll have no future. Yes, that's right. And if you keep burning fossil fuels, you'll bake in the global heating and 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and you'll die that way. Because that's what happens when you pump CO2 into the atmosphere and you have no way to take it out and you have no way to stop doing it. And you have a wicked problem. You're stuck. You are stuck. You are not. This is not a problem with solutions, at least not any good ones. They're all bad. And the one solution that stops CO2 emissions is that you stop burning fossil fuels. That's it. That's how you do it. That's how you eliminate CO2 emissions and methane emissions and nitrous oxide emissions. You stop burning fossil fuels. That's what you do. And if that seems like the wrong answer to you because that's your business or that's how you get to Starbucks for your latte, I'm not here. I'm not here to solve your problem because your problem has no solution. I'm here to tell you, you have a problem. We have a problem, and it is a wicked problem. There are no good solutions. Everything is bad. It's all wrong. We have to stop. We have to go forward. We have to do both of these at the same time. It's terrible. It's a nightmare. It's a fucking nightmare. It is absolutely horrific. I can't imagine. I can't imagine a Hollywood script worse than this. Try to figure it out. You just try. You try. You put something in the comments. Just try me. Try me. I welcome any challenges, but you better have your thinking cap on and you better be ready to go toe to toe because there is no way out of this. There's no way out.